Hey, everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network, joined by my weekly guest, the great Jonathan Shop. We're both going a little slow today. The tryptophan is kicking in from yesterday's big Thanksgiving meal. John, how you doing, bud?
Hot to trot. It's the weekend, feast week, if you will. I feel good. Try to keep the weight consistent, be back on the good side of the scale by Monday.
You know, I have lost so much weight, as you know, because you knew me when I was huge, that when you have those days like Thanksgiving or whatever, it's okay. But man, you got to go right back on it. You can't let one meal turn into two. John, let's get right to it. I thought the Raiders, there are no moral victories in the NFL. There's none. It's a pro league. You're paid to win. When you don't win, you fail. Period. End of discussion. But when you're the Raiders, rookie head coach, rookie offensive coordinator, rookie quarterback, and you didn't even get OTAs and mini camps and all of it. I mean, you came into it mid-season, and you go in there to the number one offense in the NFL and play the way you played, and your offense had a chance to win it on the last possession. It's monstrous. Again, I'm not pretending there are moral victories, but Anthony Pierce has done an outstanding job leading the Raiders. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what Antonio Pierce did, and he gets more credit than anybody, is he had the Raiders with a chance to tie, if not win. That was not on the table. Nobody saw 20 points out of the Dolphins going before the week. Coming off the bye, top offense in the league. Nobody saw. I thought they were going to get well into the 30s. So what we look at is, did the Raiders staff do what they could to put their team in the best position they could to compete and win? It sure looks like it, because they actually had a chance to win. I think is a really good sign. Of course, you're dealing with a upset situation. You're dealing with a quarterback who was not expected to be your starter at this point in the season. But yeah, I think there's a lot of success. When you look at the numbers and you look at the stats, it's like, wow, the Raiders really did pretty well. And when you compare them to who the Dolphins have played before, and let's see what they do this week, I got a feeling it's going to look very different. So this has turned a little bit quicker than many folks thought. I do think these two games with the Chiefs coming up can be more competitive, especially with the old dropperoos that seem to be plaguing Kansas City right now. So I was count me definitely impressed. I thought we were looking at a blowout. There wasn't no blowout. There was some grit. There was some strategy. There was some inspiration. The Antonio Pierce thing, it wasn't just 1 week. It's got some staying power behind it.
Hey, John, I'll tell you who, when we are off air. But for those of you that don't know, John and I have been doing this for 16 years now. 16 years we've been doing this. And a very famous professional football player, John, I'll tell you who when we go to break, texted me on Monday night and was talking about the Chiefs offense and said, wow, it reminds me of John and the Yips.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's the one wide receiver for Kansas City. You now have to think, does he have a little bit of a yip catching the ball? Now, the ball was wet the other night, but yeah, and I think it might have been Aikman, or it might have been one of the Mannings alluded to that, like, oh, that might be, you know what? It's a little bit of a concern. Now, the final catch, ball, maybe not as much, but a couple earlier in the game. And there's the one, I think it's Watson, maybe the one receiver for Kansas City. He's on Yip's watch, and you do not want that at the professional level or any level. What do receivers really do? Well, can they separate? Can they catch the ball? And can they block at a smaller level? What else are they out there doing? If you can't do one of those, you probably got a problem.
All right, John, sticking to the theme of having a problem. By the way, I agree with you. I think the staff has done a phenomenal job under Antonio Pierce as well. He's not only inspired his players, he's inspired his staff. I want to get to Tom Brady. All of a sudden now he retires and he's running his mouth about, well, the quality of the football in the NFL. And listen, I say running his mouth, that's probably too strong, because I agree with him. I don't think the quality of the NFL is great. But if I'm Tom and I'm not, I don't know that I make those comments. Just your thoughts.
It's a little misplaced. It's a little misplaced. It looks a little bit like a guy popping out and saying, "Well, you know, in my day, you know." Or, I think both things are probably true here. I would like him to develop it further. I think this is a guy that would like the NFL to be a 12-month league and people working 12 months a year. I think he'd like there for to be a longer off season and more team activities. I'm pretty sure he would support my notion of expanding the rosters. So I think he's got some um, he's given us a big nugget, but we need him to expand on it. What specifically are we talking about? Are we talking about too much acceptance of really loose plays in the offense, make where routes are out the window and the quarterback's doing this out the window? Does that lead to sloppy blocking or some of the RPO stuff where maybe it gets a little bit gray? What are we talking about specifically? And then what can we do to improve the game? Tom Brady is entering a new phase in his professional life. He is going to now ascend really to the mountaintop for as long as he's around as a voice of reason and perspective on pro football. He needs to get those wheels moving. He can help everybody, help the entire sport, help the fans if he specifically points to it, because I think he's got a loud and proud and strong enough voice to actually make a difference. So thanks for pointing that out, Tom. Now get a little more detailed. Give us a couple examples so the sport can get better for 2024.
Okay, we know now via the Pat McAfee show that Aaron Rodgers thinks he's 2 weeks away from practicing. I'm going to ask you, I think the Jets are better than they thought they would be when he went down. Do you think they blew it not going and trying to get another quarterback? Because let's say they had went and got Kirk Cousins, who you and I both know. Um, I don't think Kirk would have gone for it because he had a no trade clause. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure Kirk wouldn't have went for it. But my point was, they could have gone and got somebody. Do you think they made a mistake? Do you think they did the right thing? What's your thoughts on the Jets and uh, Aaron being 2 weeks away from practicing?
My first thought on the Jets is, where would Zach Wilson go in this year's NFL draft? I don't think he was ready to play in the NFL when he came out. I don't think he was worth anywhere near the pick he was. I don't think he's developed very much as a pro quarterback. So when that injury happened, and we're all looking at the TV screen like, what? And then you roll it back like, what? And then you see what happens to the leg and thinking, uh-oh. When that happened, yes, by that time, the Jets should have known what they had and what they had to do. Now, you can throw Captain Obvious out there and say, well, look at Josh Dobbs. Of course, the Jets should have gone and got Josh Dobbs. Yeah, that was a long time ago. I do think that they should have done something. It seemed like the Jets weren't sure if they should cash it in and really go for it or hold back, because maybe Rodgers is, maybe the injury he has is, we're not really even sure what it is. They seem to be stuck in neutral. It didn't work. There's probably a half dozen options that they could have gone and got that would have been better prepared to play at the NFL level than Zach Wilson. So now the question is there enough time left for them to save anything out of this if the miraculous happens and Rodgers returns? I don't know. You know, that's a, how in the world did they think they were going to stay within reach of the playoffs with Zach Wilson as a quarterback? Maybe I'm dead wrong. I just didn't see it.
They have.
Today. They have. So I don't know the answer to that one. I think, yeah, you should have gone and got somebody who's functional at the NFL level. It doesn't appear that Zach Wilson was or is. And now look, it's kind of they kind of made a mess. They've spilled stuff all over the kitchen. Can you really have Mr. Clean come in and clean it all up and boom? It'd be a heck of a story, but it seems to me like they should have done something because what they had was not going to be sufficient.
I am going to tell you, I people that I know very close to Aaron told me, everyone's out here, oh, it wasn't really a tear. It was a complete tear of his Achilles. and he's just doing something that's never been seen before. But I know several people very close to him, very, who are like, "Oh yeah, complete tear." It's what he's done is simply amazing. All right, the
But
NFL, man, they're coming. Go ahead.
remember, Adrian Peterson had the ACL tear that healed super duper quickly. So it's not like this is completely unprecedented. It's just unprecedented with the Achilles. This would be great if it works.
Let's talk about the NFL because they're coming for people's game checks.
It's time. So what they've decided to do, it's very clear. I heard Dean Blandino talking about it earlier in the week. We've seen it around, and it's fine. They've got to find a way to limit or eliminate unnecessary roughness. And yes, NFL players, you got to accept that you may not get hit with a flag all the time, but they're coming for your game check and they're trying to find you on the back end. I understand the big picture of this. I also understand the limitations by the NFL not really having a true off field official, one at each game, to take care of some of this on the spot. Maybe that's a place that could be improved. But I also understand the bigger picture issue that faces the game consistently is how do we get people to focus on the real point of the game, either moving the ball into the end zone or stopping? The point of the game is not to try to take the other guy's head off or do some kind of wrestling move on him. It's tricky. It's difficult because especially when we're younger, that's part of the fun of the game is seeing the big giant hits. We all saw NFL films. We've seen the highlights. Do you want to see somebody get killed on the field? Of course not. When Ben Roethlisberger mentioned that almost 15 years ago, he got massive pushback from the NFL, and they said, "Don't say anything like that again." Big picture issue: how do we take out unnecessary roughness? I think off-field official fining and trying to, from the grassroots of the game to the top, emphasize, hey, you got to understand the point of your play here is not to separate the guy from the ball, separate his head from his body, just absolutely crush him. The point is to stop the football. So if you could do that by putting your hands up and pushing him out of bounds or pushing him down, we want you to do that rather than not seeing what you're hitting, leading with the crown, etc. It's a difficult spot. A lot of people don't like to talk about it. A lot of people watching this probably don't want to hear it, but we do have to keep it in mind. It's an overreaching umbrella issue for the sport. And right now, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to go after your game check. So what you do on the field, you may not have been penalized, but they're coming for your bank.
Let's talk about the next coach fired, traded, however you want to look at it. What are your thoughts? I don't believe the Chargers want to get rid of Staley. I think they almost have to. I'll be shocked if Harbaugh doesn't end up there. And if you are a Raider fan, there's a ton of talent in Los Angeles for the Chargers. You want Staley to stay because he's not a good coach. And there's a ton of talent there. I've also heard the name Belichick. I don't think that would be a good fit personally. But I heard that because that the ownership would let him run the entire thing. I don't think he would be good for Herbert. But I think he certainly could go there. Commanders could go there. What are your thoughts on the next coach or trade?
How about Rex Ryan saying Staley needs to go back to Division III? Ooh, that's hot.
Well, I'm sorry. Rex Ryan being critical of coaches.
Yeah, I mean, I've had coaches. If we're talking defense only, that's one thing. But isn't that the guy that kind of wrecked the car? I mean, look, really good performance in New York. They made the title game 3 years in a row. But then Buffalo, I don't know what happened. It seemed like, boy, that car ran out of gas really quickly. It's a pretty severe comment because there's a long way from the NFL to Division III. And it made headlines. It's kind of funny. He's talking about his wife could coach the team better. I don't know. But yeah, that's the guy that everyone's looking at. You know, the Chargers, they've got a core fan base in Southern California. They just do. That's where they are. San Diego, LA. So many people can remember they blew that window when Marty Schottenheimer and the general manager and when they had that tug of war, their window went kapoof. So now they have a guy that one of us thinks is a really good quarterback, Justin Herbert, and they've got some real talent. they ought to see that this window is shrinking, right? So yeah, I think that you have to be looking at that's the guy. But how about Ron Rivera? I saw somebody else mention the same thing we talked about on the show last week, that maybe they push Rivera out or ask him to step aside to let Eric Bieniemy coach some games, to get some experience, to get something on tape for people to see. Those are the two that stand out. The great thing about the NFL is there's always going to be a surprise, and there's a couple of bonkers rogue owners. I'm not too far from Charlotte, North Carolina. I would keep a real eye again on Carolina. That owner is having a hard time figuring this thing out. I got a feeling he's going to kick Frank Reich out the door before Christmas Day.
It's going to be fascinating. All right, John. Raiders are improving.
Now, check
What is
this
that?
for the fans. This is a Super Bowl ticket from the Raiders versus the then Redskins. This is a real ticket, folks. January 22nd, 1984. Somebody out there must have one of these also. This is a real ticket. So don't ever
Where'd
think.
you get it?
My father went to the game.
Where did you get it? What?
My dad went to the game. It's his ticket.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It
John,
is cool.
what's your prediction for the game?
I don't think the Chiefs are going to drop as many balls. The Chiefs are hard to stop as far as scoring goes. I've got the Chiefs at 28. I've got the Raiders at 17. Woulda, coulda, shoulda been closer. It's not going to look like it at the on the stat sheet and the final tally of the game. But I got a feeling this is going to be like if our quarterback was a couple years further developed, if we might have gotten this break or that ball or that catch. The Raiders are coming. That's the feeling I'm getting, is that they're coming. What I mean by that is their best football is still ahead of them in 2023. Not saying that means anything, not saying it means a playoff berth or this or that, but it feels like they're actually improving as we're getting into the deep part of the season.
Totally agree. He's the one and only, the great Johnny Shop. John, hope you had a Thanksgiving. Great Thanksgiving. I am so grateful for you and Alicia and your friendship to me. I appreciate you. I love you. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Remember, I'm Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. That's Jonathan Schaub. You can check out his Spartan Pride podcast on Fans First Sports Network. Thank you to all of you who follow, subscribe, and are part of all that we do. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We appreciate you.